you for joining us. My name is Stephanie Giorgio. I'm the Senior Manager, Events and Partnerships with MBOT. And we're very happy to have three awesome guest speakers today joining us to talk about an important topic. I think that's on everybody's mind. I want to thank our sponsors, our series sponsors, Kaiser Mason Ball and JD Factors. Without your support, we wouldn't be able to put on these amazing events. So thank you very, very much for your support. I'm going to hand it over to Upchit, one of our sponsors from JD Factors, to say a few words and to kick us off for today. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Stephanie. And as always, we are very proud to be the sponsor of this event, educating small businesses on different aspects. I'm also part of the committee, so thank you everyone for joining us. A little bit about JD Factors. What we provide is premium non-recourse factoring. It's a solution where you don't have to wait 30, 60, 90 days to get paid from your customers. Once you submit your invoices to your customers after delivering your product or service, you give us the invoice and we fund you right away. If the customer doesn't pay for any credit reason, we assume the risk of lost payment. So we work with a lot of different industries like manufacturing, temp staffing agencies, and transportation, to name a few. And we can fund your very first invoice of $2,500 up to 60 million revenue. So we look forward to growing with you. If you want more information, I'll put my contact details in the chat and look forward to speaking with you. And I'd like to hand it over to Ritu. Do you have a few words to say?
I do. Good morning, everyone. On behalf of the Professional Development Committee, I'd like to welcome you all to our second of four-part series on growing your business. Our next one will be coming up in June on balancing your tech and people. And the last one will be in November about inflation and interest rates. We look forward to today's session. And without further ado, Linda Martin, take it on.
All right. Thank you so much, ladies. Good morning, everyone. I wanted to let you know our intention this morning is to make this session very interactive. We're going to have each of the speakers share their expertise with us first. But if you have any questions for any of the speakers, please put them in the chat box and let us know which speaker you would like to address the question that you have. Please don't be shy. We are all learning here, and any question is truly a good question. At the end, we're going to have the speakers address as many questions as possible. I'm also going to ask each of our speakers to put their coordinates in the chat box so everyone has a chance for follow-up, even if we don't get to all of the questions that you have this morning. So let's just get right into it. I want to introduce our first speaker, Alan Segal. He is founder of Segal Group, and a bit of an introduction around Alan. Alan's a highly experienced technology executive, and he's a fractional CTO and CIO. His experience is in leading large-scale transformational change. So his focus is around empowering businesses to thrive in a rapidly changing digital landscape. As a strategic technology leader, Alan develops and executes tech strategies that drive business outcomes. Alan's focus is clearly rooted in three areas. Number one, delivering measurable results, which is, of course, what we all want. Number two, accelerating time to market. And number three, reducing costs. So a warm welcome to Alan. Thank you for participating in our webinar.
Yeah, thank you for having me here. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you, Linda. And thank you to the MBOT team for inviting me.
Awesome. So, Alan, I've got some questions ready for you that I'm going to ask, and please go ahead and answer. So my first question is, what should business owners look at as they plot their AI strategy? Like, where do you even start with this?
Yeah, that's a great question. And, one I run into fairly often, especially given the times and the rapid change in pace that's happening with technology as a whole. When we think about AI, I often resemble it back to the changes that we've seen in technology landscape around digital transformation, the introduction of the internet, the introduction of cloud, and then public cloud. And this is the next real big technology that's embracing our world today. that's providing immense value for organizations. Regarding the question, where to start, one of the things that I always call out with organizations that I am supporting on this journey is I believe the strategy and execution for AI is rooted in the culture of an organization. Creating a space where employees feel empowered to think outside the box, are supported throughout the process naturally, leads to a culture that breeds innovation. And when you think about AI, when you think about technology advancement, you're really talking about innovation and how to use that. The culture aspect, I believe, is crucial because AI thrives in environments where creativity and collaboration are encouraged. Now, from a strategic standpoint, I always begin by identifying key areas where AI can have the most impact. I suggest to look at the business processes and pinpoint tasks that are repetitive, could be time consuming or prone to error. These are typically the early adopters and prime candidates to help bridge the gap between the current and future, or what we refer to as AI intervention, and how to really start harnessing some of that power. One of the things that I think are important to call out is data. Data management is critical when you talk about AI. When you talk about any real, transformation, we're in an era where data-driven decision making is paramount for any organization, and the quality of your AI's output is often graded against the quality of the data that you're using to feed in and out of it. Therefore, I always suggest a robust data management strategy that is essential to the success of early adoption in your project. And it's not a very daunting task. I would suggest that this includes collecting accurate and relevant data, ensuring that it's clean and well organized, and maintaining its security and privacy throughout the journey. Data modeling is critical no matter what you do, whether you're looking at how to influence AI or how to influence data-driven decisions, or how to just create an environment that is structured and cohesive around your business goals or objectives. I always lean on data as kind of the first area within an organization to go with. I hope that answers the question, Linda.
Yeah, awesome. I love what you're talking about, just the mindset around innovation as a start. And, the data management strategy, what have we got? What do we need to make perhaps much crisper, less repetitive? So thank you for that. My next question is, what are some of the typical outcomes when a company deploys an AI strategy? And I want you to speak a little bit, of course, it's going to be different for small and mid-sized companies, but if you can talk to both of those, that would be fantastic.
You're absolutely right. Outcomes is paramount and top of mind for everybody. It's one of the, I'd say, precursors of adopting a strategy. Organizations are trying to understand, what can we get out of this and how do we measure those outcomes? I think that is a very important part of the puzzle. Measurement KPIs are critical as part of this task. Now, I would suggest that, yes, it varies across small and mid organizations, but both are going to receive pretty similar outcomes and benefits. Where I say that it might be different is industry. Each industry could see different results. That's based on what you're trying to achieve and how you're trying to achieve. But regardless, it can be pretty transformative. And I think that is the takeaway here, is that embarking on this journey, could provide transformative results for all types of organizations. And some of these benefits and outcomes that I'm seeing personally in working with organizations on is, increased efficiency, number one, automating those repetitive tasks that I mentioned, creating strategic activities, leading to, enhanced productivity throughout the workforce, or even at the executive level when we look at reporting and metrics of a business and how do we, move on to the next growth pattern. Using AI as one of those as a precursor is pretty significant. Cost savings is another one, and that cost savings comes generally through change management activities. So operational costs by optimizing processes or reducing operational costs in the sense of automating repetitive tasks, predictive maintenance on whether it's hardware or software. You can apply that to both. Another important one, and I touched on this one earlier, is decision making. And I think as we're in an era where data is paramount for organizational effectiveness. Analyzing large systems of data is something that AI and AI models does very, very well, and provides valuable insights and allows you to structure those insights in easy to consume manners. And I think that doing this can help organizations identify new trends, forecast demands, business opportunities, and have insight into their data that they traditionally may have never thought existed or looked at or was just too cumbersome to get. That's a big one.
Wow.
Enhanced customer experience is another one I would touch on. So when we think about the way we interact with our customers and how we respond to them, how we engage, how we create stickiness in that constant customer 360 or that customer journey, this is another area where I believe that AI can add tremendous value.
Wow, it is exciting, Alan, honestly, when you look at all this list of better productivity, better efficiencies, better customer experience. And it's good that we talk about this to know that the future is brighter through AI to get over any sort of anxieties or concerns with even getting started. So thank you. Love that. I want to jump to profit, which is a little bit tied to your answer in terms of measurement. But I want to talk a little bit about what are the typical costs. So obviously companies are going to go down a journey where they're going to spend more money in the short term before they get the savings. But what are the typical costs involved and what kind of jumps in profitability have you seen as a result of this?
So maybe I'll answer the question with the last piece first, and then we'll go into costs. So from a profitability perspective, there's many areas we can look at, but the ones that I tend to lean on when partnering with organizations who are getting ready to adopt an AI strategy and helping them construct it is I look at innovation and competitive edge. So how does AI help develop new products, new services, or enhance existing ones that really capture additional market share or profitability? I think that is a big one. I talked about customer experience a little bit. I think the only thing I'll add on there is when we have happy customers, they continue to retain as customers and give us opportunities to expand within the customer base. And if we're using AI to create new service offerings or opportunities within our existing product portfolio or service portfolio, that's also an opportunity when we have engaged customers to expand within those. So those are two areas that I look at that drives towards profitability. I think enhanced decision making is another one. So when we have deeper insight into our business, we're able to identify areas of opportunity that could either reduce cost that increases profitability or drive new profit streams as well.
Yeah.
Now, costs are an important piece, and I think that that's something that needs to be evaluated and looked at. So I appreciate you bringing that up. There's the traditional costs that come with any sort of technology initiative or transformation. And those are your hardware, your software costs, right? Whether you're purchasing tools or you're developing those tools and systems for them to run, it's important that we understand what that looks like. Sometimes those costs are also data acquisition. So if we need data to drive new innovation or to analyze our business deeper, there could be an acquisition cost for that data. In some organizations, and I've got a couple of clients who I'm working with right now, they've recognized that they need to be tech enabled. They're not technology organizations. But they don't have the depth or the expertise in-house. So it's about building that team and acquiring that knowledge, whether you do it through, third-party services or in-house. Those are costs that need to be considered. Soft costs are another area that I think is worth a mention. And those are simply if you have a team in-house that manages your technology or your transformation initiatives, there could be some training and development, so upskilling, but AI could be used for that as well. So that's something to consider. Obviously, change management. So if we're embarking on new initiatives, new changes, new technologies, that could disrupt the culture a little bit. And so approaching that the right way through change management is pretty important, I would suggest. And how we lay that strategy out will really, set the path forward on driving innovation, adaptability, and really creating a culture of innovation. So those would be the areas that I would call out in terms of hard and soft costs that could drive profitability.
That's awesome. Thank you. Super clear. And my last question, you have about 15 more seconds. What would you say are the 3 main messages or takeaways you want to leave with our members?
Yeah, that's wonderful. I would absolutely love to leave the team here and our participants with 3 critical areas. One is when you think about technology transformation, culture is the foundation. And you could probably hear that through my messaging this morning, but start with culture. Strategic and a data-driven approach would be the second, and ensuring that you have a balanced investment in AI. That's software, that's hardware, but that's also your employee and or your investment in upskilling or training costs.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. And then we'll come back to you again, Alan, at the end with questions and kind of round table. So thank you. Our second speaker is Robert Andregna, founder of Enlighten AI. So Enlighten AI is a boutique technology consultancy firm dedicated to helping organizations unlock the power of AI, become more efficient and effective. Prior to Enlighten AI, Robert was an AI strategy consultant at Deloitte. He is also an AI researcher at the University of Toronto's Vector Institute, and Robert holds a Bachelor of Science in Engineering, specializing in machine intelligence from U of T, and also has a master's in philosophy, specializing in AI ethics. So welcome, Robert, and thank you so much for participating in our webinar.
Hi, Linda. Thank you. Great to be here, and thank you to the MBOT team to have this great conversation today.
Yeah, so here's my questions for you is how can business owners develop ideas for new AI applications?
Yeah, thanks, Linda. That's a fantastic question. So if you're a business owner today, you're hearing a lot about AI being everywhere. And that can honestly sound a little bit overwhelming because, oh my gosh, so much transformation, so much potential. What do I actually do? And so the advice I give my clients is to sort of take a step back and realize that you don't have to boil the ocean. Your goal is simply to just develop some very concrete, specific use cases for AI that are actually going to deliver measurable value by the time that you finish implementing them. So we don't want big picture pie in the sky ideas. Let's think of some very concrete ways that AI can make a difference, and let's make sure that we have ways of measuring the value that it provides. So when we start with that set of criteria, the options that you have to do AI narrow substantially, and you're focused on actual business challenges. So, okay, with that criteria, now what do we do? So option one, I always tell my clients, is that the easiest way to do this is to just look at what your competitors are doing. A lot of the times it's very hard to figure stuff out from first principles. But if you start going to events like this, you start talking to your colleagues, you hear these amazing ideas, and then you think, hey, why don't I just do this myself? So I think that's always my first sort of recommendation to clients, to go and scan the market. But sometimes, you have a very particular set of constraints and challenges that your business faces that the rest of the market doesn't. And sometimes you just want to be innovative and do things that nobody else has done to achieve all the profitability gains that Alan was talking about. And then so in that case, I think a more first principles approach is needed to coming up with these AI use cases. And by that, I basically mean that organizations need to go through the following 3 steps. First off, organizations really need to understand, and this is something that shows up quite frequently, that AI does not mean like Skynet, does not mean a sort of general intelligence. AI is not going to do the hard work and think for you. Rather, you've got to think of AI as a tool that produces a variety of different kinds of value. Alan mentioned some of the kinds of value that AI creates: better decision-making, better customer experience, better efficiency in your operations through techniques like, predictive maintenance or automation, and also add values like better knowledge management or better generation of content, especially in marketing contexts. So you got to sort of anchor on all of these different values, things that AI can do. And then once you've recognized these, you can ask yourself the question, well, where in our organization do we need to improve on any of these values? Where are we inefficient in our business? Where does our customer experience suck and need a retool? Where are we not managing the vast amount of information we have effectively? And obviously, this is tough. It's hard for a CEO or a leadership team by themselves to make these decisions. This is where you really want a multi-stakeholder, multi-team engagement to go and get everybody's ideas and opinions on the table. And through that process, right, you'll hope that you'll have some really great ideas of places where AI can make an impact. And then your final challenge is to think about how to go about implementing stuff. Especially if you're a mid or a small size business, these big technology implementations can be very difficult, very time consuming, and you might not have the personnel in-house you need in order to do something like that. So we've got to think about either developing those capabilities and what would be needed, and we can talk about this later, or we've got to be thinking about going to the third-party market and seeing if there are already existing solutions that do what it is that you need to do. Evaluating that trade-off and figuring out whether there's a quick way to do this is the last step that you have to take in order to come up with a very concrete AI use case for your organization.
Wow, thank you. And I like your title of First Principles, just making it so crisp and at least go through these as the basic. Fantastic. My other question is challenges, and I'm sure you've seen lots in your business, but what kinds of challenges do organizations face when they start launching AI projects, and how can they overcome them? So the challenge and how they overcame them.
Yeah, great question. I'll talk about 3 key challenges that I've seen in my practice thus far. We've got the challenge of technological perfectionism, the challenge of a lack of robust data infrastructure, and the challenge of immature enterprise solutions for AI. So let's start with the technological perfectionism. By this, I basically means that CEOs come to AI and they expect everything in the world out of it. For example, I had one particular client who's like, we want AI to read all of our documents and extract all of the insights out of our documents. And when you prod that, you realize that, hey, there's no real rationale for why the AI needs to do this. There's no clear business value that this is going to generate. There's no metrics to measure success. It's just a very nebulous, vague concept. That's a challenge because there's no real criteria for what you need to build. And so to mitigate that, I really challenge business leaders to hone in on particular use cases that solve real business problems with very measurable sort of metrics to measure progress by. So that's how you mitigate the first challenge. And then when it comes to robust data and technology infrastructure, a lot of the times, organizations need access to the right data in order to make their models work. And the quality of your results is only going to depend on the quality of your data. This involves stuff like, is your data available on the cloud? Is it good quality? Do you have enough of it? And all of these questions are kind of tough to get through and might make organizations a little bit hesitant to start because you've got the sense that, before I start my AI project, I've got to do all this data infrastructure. That's going to take forever, so why even bother? That sort of, analysis by overwhelm is quite common. And I think the way that you mitigate that is by recognizing that, you don't need to have your entire data infrastructure set up to do AI well. You only need the data infrastructure that's particular to the kind of application that you're trying to launch. And so what I encourage businesses to do is once they figured out the business challenge they want to solve and they've identified the AI solution they need to solve it, then you kind of work backwards and say, okay, what data and what technology in our organization do we need to operationalize on that goal? And you roadmap whether it's possible to set that up. If it is possible, fantastic, you have a solution. If not, maybe this is telling you that this use case should be shelved for further date or some foundational work is needed first.
Mhm. Wow, fantastic. Very, very practical as well. My next question, Robert, is the capabilities that organizations need to deploy AI. What are these capabilities?
Yeah, this is a great question. The capabilities for me really fall into two key buckets. Actually, I think I'll make that three. First, you need data, the right data. Then second, you need the right people and technology. And then third, you need the right change management practices. So first, let's talk about data. As we've alluded to in past, your models are only as good as the data that you feed it in. So you need enough data in your organization, and you've got to make sure that it's stuff the AI can actually work with. So these are questions, as I mentioned earlier, like, is this data that you have that you need available on the cloud, right? Is it good quality? Do you have data quality checks and maintenance processes in your organization? Do you have enough data to train your models or to give the models the context they need to produce the outcomes that you want it? All of those different questions around data hygiene needs to be answered and established. Then once you know that your data is set up, and then it comes down to your people challenges. Now, the people you need really depend on the approach to AI that you're going to take, right? Every organization, when they think about AI, has to face a sort of buy versus build trade-off. Or if you buy a system, you go to a third-party vendor of AI solutions and you buy something off the shelf. And if you build a system, you're kind of building the solution in-house. If you want to buy a system, your people costs go down because then all you really need to think about is, do I have a robust enough IT department to take this existing application and bring it into our business? And a lot of businesses will have the ability to do that. But if not, for instance, if your IT is outsourced, right, that might be a further conversation. Conversely, if you're thinking that you're going to build an AI system yourself, then the people you need gets a lot more expansive. You start needing engineers on your team, right? Product managers, machine learning engineers, data scientists, UX designers. And so then in that case, you've got to think about whether you are well equipped to bring on this entire team and make that happen. And then finally, with the change management side of things, right? Once you have your AI system and you have the data to support it, you've got to make sure that it's possible to roll it out into the organization effectively. And that comes down to good processes for change, good culture, as Alan referred to, and many other attributes that we don't have time to get into here.
Yeah, that's awesome. What a great framework. I'm going to jump to our last question, Robert. So what are your three main messages for our MBOT members this morning that you want them to leave with and think about?
Yeah, for sure. So I see three key takeaways. Number one, when you're doing AI, make sure that you pick a well-defined business challenge with measurable return on investment and metrics to measure success that you want your AI to actually solve. Takeaway one. Takeaway two, make sure that you have the data infrastructure to support the use cases that you want to roll out, but don't let perfectionism about your data infrastructure as a whole stop you from doing stuff. And number three, pick your technology partners to do AI. And when you pick your technology partners to implement AI, make sure that they're solid companies that aren't going to go out of business in 6 months, 12 months. Pick well-established companies that will be able to be with you on your AI journey for the long haul.
Wow, fantastic. This is awesome. Thank you so much, Robert. And just a reminder, if you have questions specific for Robert, please put them in the chat box and just put Robert beside the question in the chat box, just so we know who to direct the questions to. And our final speaker is Sean Stevens. Sean is currently CEO of Tree Frog, a digital marketing agency. Sean, believe it or not, has been on the front page of Wired. He's been on Dragon's Den 4 times and ran several successful Kickstarter campaigns for IoT. He won Entrepreneur of the Year and is a regular angel investor in local startups and founded one of Canada's top startup accelerators. He's a thought leader on the impact of AI directly in the field of marketing. He's delivered dozens and dozens of presentations on the topic of AI all through North America, through Tech Canada, the world's largest presidential and CEO advisory. Welcome, Sean, and thank you so much for being here today.
Amazing. Wow. Thank you very much for having me. And I got to say, it's a little unfair for me to come after Alan and Robert because two brilliant people saying brilliant things. And now I got to sort of follow up from that. I would say, and after hearing what they had to say, I think I might take what I'm about to say in a totally different direction than what I was originally going to say. And the reason for that is when we hear the word AI, that's just like an umbrella term to me now. It's like saying, are you going to use computers or are you going to use electricity? Like it's just something that you should be doing. And then the question is, how am I going to use electricity? That's a hard question. You know, how am I going to use electricity? But I want to make the sort of distinction because Tree Frog, we're a digital marketing agency, but we're also a digital transformation agency. And for about 7 years, we've been building neural networks and building things in the space of AI. And I actually think of this now as traditional AI, like the old-fashioned form of AI, like it should be baked in. And back 5 years ago, it would cost an SME, a business, at least $250,000 to get their feet wet, you know, to go and build models and build things and put stuff together. And Alan and Robert could probably tell you that the cost of that has come a lot farther down. If you want to do analysis of future sales, predictive maintenance and automation, you can get a strategy, you can get pieces you can do and start involving models with traditional AI faster. But there's another, and the reality is, as Robert pointed out, this is overwhelming. Like where do I start? Like, how do I interface with this thing? Especially in sales and marketing. Now, I think that the world is going to change. My son just built a computational neural network for recognizing hot dogs in high school. So I know that like the AI natives are going to start happening, and there's going to be like suddenly I'm going to feel like the old guy, like, oh, AI. But I think the key change, and I think everybody needs to be aware of this, is AI is now starting to come out in everyday life, where we need to get our minds over the fact that the way we were doing things is going to change. And the biggest change here, obviously, for those of you, at least a few of the audience here, just want to come and learn, how am I going to use ChatGPT? Should I use it? Should I not use it? When should I use it? Because it is technically AI. It's a large language model. And you know what, the quote of the year, maybe the quote of the decade, maybe the quote of the century is very simple. To me, it's, you're not going to be replaced by AI, but you're going to be replaced by somebody using AI. Just like you were replaced by somebody using a computer, just like you were replaced by somebody using electricity, just like, et cetera. And so when I think of how in the field, especially in sales and marketing and what we're doing, where is AI best used? The answer is yes, you can do, I'm going to say traditional AI. You can hire Robert or Alan or others to go do a great job of baking things and putting them together. But also, you need to be on the front side of that. You need to be experimenting with the tools that are baked into Salesforce, with the tool, like you need to experiment with ChatGPT and other things. And this is about extremely efficient usage. And how can I get super efficient with my day-to-day life by doing activities that previously I was not efficient at? And a lot of marketing is things like generation of content, generation of things, refining my message. And there's so many simplistic ways to use that. I'll give you a couple of quick examples. This is the best example I think that I have is go find your VP of sales or your salesperson, your head of sales, even if it's you, and record the next 3 to 5 conversations that you have in a sale as you're trying to sell to somebody. Then take that stuff and stick it in a large language model and have it generate future proposals, have it generate blog posts. It's all the questions that your website didn't answer. It's all the questions that they wanted to hear, not the stuff that you had before. So when we're talking about AI, we're talking about small implementations. The first step on a small implementation is just start using the tools, the large language models that are out there.
Wow. I love that. And I love how you've made it, Sean, just so simple that kind of just start where you're at, start experimenting, playing around with it. I'm just curious, your ChatGPT, what is like, if you were to tell all our MBOT members, like, how do you best start? Like, I know you're saying start, but can you give us some examples of the best way to do that from a sales and marketing standpoint?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say number one is just starting is making sure you're paying for the tool. I know just there's some basic fundamental issues with privacy, with ownership, with bias, et cetera, that you should go to understand. So you probably want to watch a few YouTube videos on what that looks like. We could explain that in the next 3 hours, but we don't have that time. Once you have that, step one is just using it yourself. I mean, literally go get ChatGPT and start using it if you're not already. And some of the most simplistic things that you could do, one of the things that I do every day is I record myself. ChatGPT on the computer for a Mac just arrived, and you're going to have that baked in. Is I literally just record myself with ChatGPT, and then I use the recording of myself to turn it into notes. So every time I'm in a car, I write emails, I do strategies, because I'm just recording myself the whole time I'm in the car. And that just basic, when you start looking at that, then if you're paying for the model, you can throw documents in. So if you don't have the Microsoft version, then you can use ChatGPT well for this. Just grab a contract, throw it in and say, what's this contract missing? What else should it say? You can grab, some marketing content, throw it in and say, what kind of person would be manipulated or change their beliefs as a result of this content? And if not, could you rewrite this content to help me find a better person, a better client, a better potential lead? Those kinds of like really simplistic things. Just start using it and start playing with it on a day-to-day basis. So this is more than just that you can have the grand AI strategy of how am I going to bake it in? How am I going to do these complex predictive maintenance and automations and other things? You can also just start using the basics of AI to make yourself more efficient.
Wow, no, and I like how granular you're taking us. When we think about ChatGPT or Copilot, and I understand I'm no expert in this, but I think they're both paid options. Could you speak to what is the difference between both their paid options in terms of sales and marketing? Like,
Yeah,
which one would you recommend?
I'd probably need an hour to go through all the LLMs, all the different versions that are out there, and comparison. I'm constantly in a fight about which one is best. The reality is both of those use the same engine, which is OpenAI's ChatGPT 4.0. With Copilot right now, it's $9.99, I think. Alan, you probably know better than me, per user. ChatGPT is $25 a month at this time, and actually they've released most of their tools for free. I would say you want to pay for it, and what my recommendation is, pay for both. What I've seen in Copilot is, although there's a lot of great embedding in various places, it's not doing all the cool things that ChatGPT can do yet. And it also doesn't have the ability to do things like GPTs, which if you start playing with GPTs, there's a whole bunch of basically apps, like there's an app store for GPTs, and there's so many cool things to do there. So you're limiting yourself by doing one. And for $35 a month, the value you're going to get to have both, one embedded in your day-to-day life and one doing this extra stuff, you can afford that. And honestly, you probably should afford that for all of your employees because of the gross efficiency that you're going to see as a result of every single one of them using it, which I'll discuss later.
Wow, fantastic. So I want to go back, Sean, to your point about content within marketing. So this is something that the members could use to generate content, whether it was for their own social media or any other purpose, right? So that would be one good use of AI in the marketing field.
Yeah, so if you get a bunch of SEOs, which is search engine optimization people in a room, we're all going to have a fight over whether Google is digitally or cryptographically signing the content and whether you should be using that content in marketing. The answer is this: Google's job is to find the best information on any given subject. And the best information probably isn't on the internet. So going to ChatGPT and say, write an article on my widget, that is a terrible idea. But what you can do is you can sit your salespeople in a room and have them answer all the questions or record your sales conversations, take those out. That's the information that they want to hear that people don't have, and use that information and use ChatGPT to write that quickly. So you're getting the efficiency, not the information. So instead of the sort of gross hallucination of the giant pile of stuff that came out of ChatGPT, you're getting that. In addition, there's so many efficiencies. I sat down on the weekend and I'm like, oh, I have 3 ideas, and quickly I can explain the idea just by voice as I'm walking around my garden on, I want to write an article about this, ChatGPT, and I want you to say this, and I want you to say that, and I want you to say this. And so the CEO and my brilliance is coming out, and I get to hand it to someone who actually knows more and say, make this better. And they put it in ChatGPT and they say, okay, CEO's article sucks, add this, remove this, add this, and bam, we have an amazing article instantly. And so getting that super efficiency to create great content. Then I can take that, I could follow myself around, and there's other tools using AI where I could do things like create an entire training platform on how to use something. I could follow somebody around. I could use a tool called HeyGen to make videos of myself. I literally just take that article, put it in, it creates a video, me talking head in front of it. There's a whole bunch of other things you can do. As soon as you start playing with it, you find a bunch more stuff. If that makes sense.
Wow. So just get right into it, and not just you. Basically, would you say get everybody on board with ChatGPT and Copilot? You'd take it that far in a small to mid-sized company?
Absolutely. Not letting one of your key people, I mean, sure, if I'm on a manufacturing line and I'm doing the same thing, you probably don't need ChatGPT, but anybody who's using their brain for a living, anyone that sends email in your company probably needs ChatGPT in order to be more effective. Not giving that to them would be like saying, I want you now to write all of your emails on paper. Here's a pen. I want you to write them all out and fold them all out and stick it in a stamp and send it up. Like we're going backwards in history now. At this point in history, every single thinking human being in your organization should have access to large language models to help them be more efficient.
Wow. And I just, just as you're talking, I'm wondering, like, when this type of ideation gets deployed in a company, so is this something where you like set up a team and people are like, okay, play around with it and let's weekly get together, share how we got some simple solutions out of ChatGPT? Is that what you've seen in the small to mid-sized space?
Linda, I feel like we've talked about this before. I love it. You know this, so you're teasing it out of me. I'm a big believer in this. Just simply assigning ChatGPT to everybody and then saying, use it. That's not going to work. Alan was talking about culture, the importance of baking it into culture. And the answer to this is, if I can have a weekly meeting for half an hour and get my whole team involved and say, everybody show up and give me the ideas, tell me how you're using ChatGPT to use it effectively. If you're using Slack or using Teams, get a Slack channel started and get everybody to throw in the cool things that they're doing every day, the things that they've discovered, and start using cultural discovery. Again, you will not be replaced by AI, but you will be replaced by somebody using AI. This also is important for culture as people realize their jobs are not going away because of AI. Their jobs are going to necessitate change by using AI. And the only way you're going to stay competitive is by baking this in everywhere.
Awesome. So my other question is, can you give us an example, whether it's from the field of sales or marketing, where people deployed this, and talk a little bit about, what they did and what the outcome was? Just one example would be fantastic.
Only one example. That's really hard. You know what? There's a lot of
Your favorites. Doesn't have to be the biggest, or just one that struck you as like, holy smokes, this was a good one.
Oh, wow. There's so many. Some of the things that I would say aren't working quite yet. So I have to give you a couple of quick ones. One is like Air.ai, where you have AI make cold calls for you. To be honest, that sucks. I hate it. The whole idea, and I'm just going to say, on the early end, the stuff that's really simplistic is actually reorganizing the content on your website. So what you can do, and this is a sort of a gimme win, is go to ChatGPT if you've got the paid version, have it go to your website and ask it questions about your website. What's the kind of person this would attract? What's the style and the tone of this? What do you think my values are based on this content? Then you'll realize ChatGPT knows about your website, that you're not attracting the right leads, the right potential candidates to hire, et cetera. And then say, well, let's rediscuss what my values are, rediscuss what my style should be. Would you please rewrite all the content on my website for me according to this style, this tone, these things, et cetera? By the way, if you need help, call me, but this is the general sense. And rewrite the entirety of your website using the right tone, vision, mission, values, et cetera, as opposed to the marketing person that you happen to have write your content the first time around.
Oh, that's a good one. Fantastic. And my last question, Sean, before we turn it back to the group, what are your 3 main messages or takeaways to MBOT members that you want to leave them with?
Love it. And this kind of message that I've been giving people for a while is if you're 1 step ahead of everybody, you're a leader. If you're 2 steps ahead of everybody, you're a visionary. If you're 3 steps ahead of everybody, you're a whack job. So you're a disruptor. So let's discuss what 3 steps you should have. The first step is, how do you lead? How are you going to lead your competition? And the answer is you. The answer is you are going to start using AI personally to make yourself more efficient. So even the tactical things I just said, speaking into a microphone, using it to create training materials, using it to read contracts, using it to go through your email, using it to create graphs for you, whatever those things are, so you can get more insights and quick wins. Number 2, how are you going to become a visionary? The answer is exactly what you said, Linda. You're going to go to every part of your operations. You're going to go to sales and say, how am I going to improve sales with this? Then you're going to go to marketing and say, how am I going to improve marketing with this? You've got people in those roles, then you're going to go to them and you're going to help them bake it in. And you're going to get each one of the units of your business seeing how they can get more efficient and do better things using large language models and generative AI. And once they're rolling with efficiency and they're getting stuff done, then number 3 is how you're going to get 2 or 3 year perspective on this. One is you're going to hire Alan, Robert, or myself, probably Alan and Robert, to do some of your core AI stuff. Even more importantly, you're going to go down to ChatGPT and you're going to type in, how is AI going to disrupt my business? And then type in what your business does, and then ask for 50 ways it will. And then you're going to take those 50 ways, you're going to look through them and go, oh my goodness, these are all things I have to do over the next 3 years. And then you're going to pick one initiative and you're going to start working on that because you know it's the one that's going to lead to the greatest ROI.
Oh my gosh, fantastic. Thank you. So I'm going to turn it back to the speakers. I'm going to go back to Alan before we do a roundup. Alan, any questions that you want to answer for chat or anything that you want to add, perhaps that Robert or Sean said that you want to make an addition to as we move to a wrap up? So I'm going to turn it back to you.
Thank you, Linda. Yeah, I'd say a couple things. Sean mentioned, get everybody ChatGPT. And I was talking about breeding a culture of innovation. And, I can't emphasize enough how many times I run into an organization that says, well, how do we change the culture? And there's the answer. Just by enabling and giving people the opportunity to play breeds new things. And it's a start, and it's a nominal cost to do it. And if the cost is concerned, you can do it with free versions. But it's really the way that you start. So I can't emphasize enough how important it is to create an environment where people can go and play and do things and learn, and then come together and understand, what did we learn? Because that continues to breed ideas, breed innovation, and the output of that, maybe not in a week, maybe not in 6 weeks, but at some point in time, will be a really good idea that someone will take to drive enhanced business outcomes.
Right.
And I've seen this many, many, many times, and it's a fantastic approach to doing it. I've been a part of fairly large organizations, enterprise organizations. And the one thing that we always look at is how do you create an environment where employees feel empowered? And it's to remove the restrictions. That's it, right? Now there's a balance between, how do we ensure we do this safely while, respecting privacy and data compliance, et cetera. But, enablement is really it. So I think that was a great point. I would just emphasize that.
And when I think about culture, it's a big word that's batted around. I always think it's group behavior, right? So how do you get everybody doing something together that demonstrates a culture of technology adoption? Which I think, just getting the key players who, have key responsibilities into the game and playing around with it. And then it becomes less daunting. So I totally agree with you on that. Anything else that you would add before we move back to Robert?
No, I think that's good. I'd love to see if there's any questions from anyone.
Okay. And just as a reminder to all speakers, just make sure your contact is in the chat if you haven't done that already. So I am going to send it back to Robert. Any additions, Robert, that you want to make based on what Alan and Sean have said, or any questions that you would like to answer from any of our members?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd like to piggyback off of a little about what Sean said. Sean, I thought that was absolutely brilliant and really speaks to an important distinction, I think, about the way that organizations use AI that is sometimes neglected. I feel like when the discourse around AI happens, there's sort of two different things people might mean. The first thing that people might mean, and this is what people mean when they talk about, better decision making or better customer experience, is the question of how do, as an organization, we adopt AI sort of products into what we do as sort of standard parts of organizational practice, right? That's one side of things. And you're looking at your standard digital transformation technology implementations. These systems have to be extremely robust. They have to be extremely reliable. There has to be well-defined sort of systems in place for how your AI systems interact with the rest of your organization. And these systems will often do tasks that are very specific to your organization. Conversely, I think, Sean, the way that you were talking about AI, which is very valuable, is as providing every single individual person the ability to hypercharge their personal productivity in ways that were not possible before. And what's awesome about that is that, as opposed to the big sort of core AI massive tech implementation projects, doing this sort of hyperproductivity is just as simple as allowing people to learn and giving everybody access to ChatGPT. I think this is awesome. What I do want to say, though, is that that approach, while extremely valuable, from my experience doing consulting work, has come with a couple of limitations. So I'll give you an example of a time where companies wanted to take the sort of latter approach and had to shift to the former, more bigger technological implementation approach. I've been working with a couple of companies who want to extract information from documents that is very, very important to them. And so their first thought is, let's use AI. Let's give everybody who processes documents access to ChatGPT, throw the documents in on their file, and then they'll extract all the information that we need. And it turns out when you do that ChatGPT is actually really, really, really bad at this. So is Copilot, but so is pretty much every other standard large language model that's out there. Simply because, when they made Copilot or ChatGPT, the OpenAI engine, they trained on all the data on the internet. But these documents had such a weird format that it wasn't really represented in the data ChatGPT was trained on. And so as a result, ChatGPT couldn't really interpret these documents. And so they'd be getting horrible answers back or responses. And they'd say, well, AI isn't actually really useful for practical applications. And we had to step in and say, no, if you want ChatGPT to write your emails or summarize your sales calls, right? Then that's fantastic. But in these more domain-specific areas, pure ChatGPT alone isn't enough. You've got to think about surrounding software and specialized technologies that are needed to make this particular task work well. And then that's what you get into sort of digital transformation and technology adoption world. So I think when you're thinking through your tasks, make sure to ask yourself, what tasks can ChatGPT actually do as a turbocharger of hyperproductivity? And which do you need a little bit more of a systematic organization-wide approach to accommodate?
Yeah, no, that's really, really well said, Robert. Oh my gosh, you guys have given us so many ideas. Anything else you want to add before we turn it back to Sean?
No, that's about it for me.
Awesome, thank you, Sean. So some last comments from you based on perhaps what Alan or Robert had said, or if there are any specific questions. I think your part is really zeroing around, as Robert said, on just how do we get our arms around this personally, right? Where Alan and Robert are focused on organizational change. What else would you like to add to the conversation here?
Yeah, absolutely. The fact is that there's not a lot to add after Alan and Robert's comments, except this. I learned this as a member of Tech Canada, which is the idea that everyone gets exactly the business that they deserve. So if I was to go into 3 years into the future and look back upon this moment and ask the question, who took action on what and who got somewhere and who didn't, who's struggling against the competition and who has actually led the competition, then the answer is going to be whoever showed up to this webinar and listened to the, us three guys talk about all the future possibilities here, maybe worked with us or worked with others who do similar things. And the fact that you are here in a webinar about AI, it means at least you're clued into the fact that this is a thing that you need to be paying attention to. And at least you're starting to stimulate yourself with the idea that I should do something, and start looking at, well, how can I use, to Robert's point, can I use it in the front end, can I use it in the back end? Am I going to use this to Alan's point? Am I going to bake it into different people using Copilot, or where are those other pieces going to come through? Fundamentally, though, as long as you're paying attention to this and it is a priority that you are going to activate on this, and you're going to have meaningful conversations with professionals and listen to webinars and start experimenting it with yourself, then your business will move forward and it will lead the competition as a result of that activity. Just like the people who started using electricity or the people who started using computers, they all led their competition. So great work, guys. Great work.
So I guess it's just, this is, Sean, what I'm interpreting you're saying is just do it. I'm curious what everybody has written down for them as like one action statement. There's been so much provided here, even if it's going to be going to a paid subscription of $9.99 for ChatGPT. That could be the one thing that you do to start escalating what it is that you're taking on to bring AI into your organization. So just honestly, guys, a huge thank you. Wow. I got a lot out of it, just facilitating it. I can't even imagine what the participants got. And I'm so glad we're able to record it, Stephanie, so that people can go back and listen and reflect, because it is a lot to take in when I think about what Alan brought to the table from large scale enterprise, and Robert from mid, and then Sean's take on just even like the personal side and how do you make this happen today. So I'm glad we've got a recording of it. So I think we are, oh good, okay, we got done with the 3-minute timeline. So thank you everyone, and I'm going to send it back to Stephanie.
Thank you very much to all of you for joining today. Thank you to Kaiser Mason Ball and to JD Factors for sponsoring our event. And again, thank you to all of you for presenting today. So Alan, Robert, and Sean, thank you very much. And to Linda, thank you. Have a great day, everyone. We will see you soon.